So we got an update today, community update number 24, looking to the future. And Larian addresses some pretty hot topics right now, including the cut content conversation that's been circulating around the community and the karlach conversation, as well as patch 2 and bugs and things of that nature. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to get into spoilers in this video, so if you haven't beaten the game yet, I wouldn't worry too much. Let's jump right into it. And yes, I am going to be reading through this community update and stopping to talk about things, but if you want to read it on your own, I will leave a link down in the video description to this community update. Hello all. Since launching last month, a lot of tweaks and updates can already be seen in Baldur's Gate 3. Over the past few weeks, we've chased down bugs, polished up some cinematics, and used your feedback to help organize our thoughts and inform our plans going forward. The first major patch just launched, solving over 1,000 bugs to hopefully make Baldur's Gate 3 an even better experience. But it was still a patch designed primarily to squash bugs. Now, if you missed the news, Larian did release patch 1 with over 1,000 bug fixes, all sorts of balancing, flow issue, changes, and things of that nature. It's an insanely big list, so I'll also leave a link to this down below in the video description. Never got around to covering it myself because I was finishing up my Let's Play series, but it is a massive, massive patch. And even though we don't want bugs when a game releases, and we want bugs to be fixed, and it's not really something to praise a company for, so to say, bugs are also to be expected to a certain degree, especially in the CRPG genre, and it's good to see Larian on top of this, like in full force. Clearly, they really care about cleaning things up, even though they probably already made the majority of their sales. So this is good to see. Back to the update. We want to go further than that. We now find ourselves at a time where we're able to properly sit down and consider how to parse feedback beyond bug fixing and UX tweaks. Patch 2 is just around the corner, and while it does include bug fixes, it also includes substantial performance improvements for the first time since launch. Those of you that are having performance problems right now, 2 quick things that you could try. 1, make sure that your GPU drivers are updated, and 2, when you click on Baldur's Gate 3 for the first time, the Larian launcher pops up, and below the play button you can switch it from DirectX 11 to Vulkan or vice versa. When I went to the city for the first time, I had bad performance. I switched it from Vulkan to DirectX, and it actually solved the problem for me, so something to at least try. And actually, one more thing, I'm going to leave a link down below in the video description of a YouTube video that seems to be helping a lot of people with performance issues. You could perhaps try that before this next patch, or even after the next patch if you're still not getting the best performance. Perhaps notably, we're adding better closure to the story's final act in the form of a more fleshed out ending for Karlach, something many of you have been asking for. So it seems like many are not really that satisfied with Karlach's endings, because there's multiple endings for each companion, and it seems like Karlach was underwhelming when compared to a lot of the other companions, or people just simply didn't like the different types of endings that that companion had. I'll leave it at that for spoilers, but Larian is addressing it, which is really cool. Before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a moment to focus on a conversation some of you have been having in the background. Many of the points that come out of this conversation are being funneled into the umbrella term of cut content, so we thought it would be helpful to give you some clarity about that as we think about the future of Baldur's Gate 3. A lot of you all have been asking me to comment on the cut content issue or whatever, but I just finished my playthrough a couple days ago, my Let's Play series. I was doing basically 2 playthroughs at one time, which was taking forever, so I didn't really have a chance to really look into this too much. With that said, it was a conversation that was floating around, and Larian is going to address it, so this should be interesting. We went through many different threads and reviews with our community teams, and we think we've managed to truncate the discussion about cut content in Act 3 into 3 topics: performance, bugs, and user experience. Number 1, performance. The city of Baldur's Gate itself is ambitious, technically, narratively, and in scope. One of the biggest issues with creating games is that technology is always trying to keep up with your ambition, and here we've been hit pretty hard by some setbacks. We know that Act 3's performance isn't as good as the first 2 acts, but the good news is that Patch 2 is bringing major performance improvements to the entire game, but more specifically to Act 3, where you'll feel it the most. We'll also be working throughout September to improve performance in Act 3 further with new technology that's been taking a bit longer to release than we expected. So I agree, Act 3 is not that great in performance when you compare it to Act 1 and 2. Like I said, I switched to DirectX 11 and it mostly solved it for me, so it was playable for me, but still not as good as Act 1 and 2. And some people are having some real issues. I have a pretty good PC, so that may be the reason why I was able to get through it without much of a problem. Good to see that Larian is addressing this publicly and working to fix it. Bugs. We've seen your reports about Act 3 and we're as frustrated as you are by bugs spoiling the experience. So we're dedicated to solving these quickly. And as you've noticed by our hotfix and patch rollout, we're getting pretty fast. Our approach is that whenever blockers pop up, we either release a hotfix if a patch is not imminent, or include the fix as part of a patch if the patch is imminent. With patch 1, your experience should already be a lot better, with most big issues being solved by at least a workaround. Patch 2 looks to further eliminate some of the major issues, including those found in Act 3. Some things that are currently being associated with cut content are actually things like companion reactions to events in the world that didn't trigger. These are being solved. Where there seems to be loose ends, we're tying them up. So yes, I did notice some scenes in my run where something pretty big would happen and no companion had a response for it. And that's probably pretty normal for most games that we play, but after you've played Act 1 and 2 to get to Act 3 and have companions not want to comment on fairly important events, that did feel a little bit weird. Now I will say companions not reacting to certain events isn't even that serious of a bug when compared to some of the other bugs that it seems like a decent amount of players have been experiencing. Don't get mad at players for calling out game-breaking bugs. Don't get mad at players for even giving the game a thumbs down rating on Steam because they experienced game-breaking bugs. Hopefully those players will change their rating if Larian's on top of it, but when you run into a game-breaking bug, at its core, that is a broken product when you think about it. This is one of my favorite games of all time. Larian is probably my favorite company in this industry right now, but it's still a broken product when you run into a game-breaking bug, especially the more serious ones. I was able to not get too upset at a few of the game-breaking bugs that I encountered because I just reloaded and replayed it, but not everybody's going to feel that same way. So these bugs should be called out. People can be upset. It's okay if they're upset. Everybody takes this differently, and Larian seems to be on top of it. So I think we're moving in the right direction here. User experience. UX covers a lot of things from how it feels to play the game to how you feel when you're playing it. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game 3 years in early access and 6 years in the making. Many of the building blocks or ideas, tests, or however you want to refer to the junk data that falls outside of what we shipped with, can and is being data mined. That's okay, but it's important to understand that not every building block in the giant box of Lego is needed to create the experience we ultimately envisioned and intended over the years of iteration. I think I know where Larian is going with this. Cut content as a concept is not a bad thing. It's part of every creative project in the history of all creative projects. There's always going to be cut content. When you have data miners that are able to pull this content out of the files and then show it to the public, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think there's a lot of great data mining work out there and a lot of great data mining channels, but when that information makes it to the public, some people see it as a bad thing. They're like, oh my god, this existed in the files, but this company decided not to give it to us? How could they do that? Well, it might have only been like a 10% developed idea for all we know, or maybe the company just didn't think that it worked well. There's so many different reasons why content might get cut. Inherently, it's not a bad thing. In some cases, it can be, and I understand why people sometimes view it as a bad thing, because a lot of gaming companies do seem to release like half a game, and then they release the other half as like a paid DLC or something like that, which is bullshit. In Larian Studios' case, it doesn't seem like they're doing that. So I don't view cut content necessarily as a bad thing, or I don't just assume that we weren't given things because of malicious reasons. But let's let Larian do the talking. We've seen 3 types of complaints that are being referred to as cut content. The first references content that actually doesn't properly trigger because of a bug. For instance, some of Minthara's reactivity. We've located what's causing that and are working on it. Expect a fix for this soon. It seems like a lot of the reactivity situations, specifically with Minthara, is more so because things just aren't working on the back end of the game, and Larian seems to be on top of it. Good to hear. The second is about the epilogue, and I did say no spoilers for this video, but this section actually does talk about where the end of the game kind of takes place. It's just a location in the game. It's not that big of a deal, but if I feel like it's a spoiler, then I'll catch you on the next video. Now, personally, I didn't mind the epilogue. My criticisms for Act 3 come earlier in the game with the main quests. I feel like there could have been a little bit more there, but I actually didn't mind the epilogue. Clearly, enough players thought that there should be more to it, though, and Larian is addressing that, which I think is great. And if they can make it even better, then I'll also be happy as well. What's been data mined is not really cut content, but content that we didn't want to release because we didn't think it worked. We're pretty strict with ourselves and our ideas. If it isn't good, if it isn't fun to play, it doesn't make it into the game. As someone who's been around Larian peeps quite a few times now and talked to Larian employees, I can vouch for this. I know that they are a company that if something isn't good or they don't like it, they will redo it. Sven will tell somebody, I know you spent 2 weeks working on this, but I just don't think it's good enough. We have to try another iteration. And I've only heard good things about Sven in terms of him being a boss, but he's not scared to do things like that from what I understand. So I actually believe them when they say this. One of the reasons why we've trimmed the epilogue is because we were afraid the ending cinematics were becoming too long and would detract from the epicness of the experience. But clearly not everyone agrees with us. So we're going to do something about it. Man, isn't it refreshing to deal with a company like Larian Studios? We're just going to get on it and make it better for players that didn't think that it was good enough. Pretty incredible. We started expanding the epilogues, and you'll see the first results of that patch in patch 2 with the addition of a new optional ending with Karlach. It's fiery, poignant, and gives her the ending she deserves. So there you go. All you Karlach fans that really cared about Karlach's ending, looks like you're going to have a new optional one. Hopefully it satisfies you. But it's not just Karlach. As Larian said, epilogues. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. The third is about the things we actually didn't plan for, and for those we once considered but ultimately didn't do. It was always our intention for the Upper City to be an epic, cinematic epilogue, bringing the story of Baldur's Gate 3 to a close. But we didn't talk about that in advance because it would have been a major spoiler. We feel confident that there's enough content in Baldur's Gate 3 and the city itself, clocking in weeks-long playthroughs at a time. Totally agree. There's so much content in this game, especially in Act 3. If you want to get the most out of Act 3, have as many companions with you as possible and do all of their quests. Also do the side quests and the main quest. I felt like the main quest went by a little bit too fast, but there's no shortage of content overall in Act 3. That's not to say Baldur's Gate 3 didn't see cuts just as every game. It's just important to know that what ultimately shipped was planned long ago and functioned primarily of making Baldur's Gate 3 fun to play, not for us to close development quickly. Personally, I believe them when they say that, but there's really no way that they can prove to us that that's how they were approaching this. It's up to you if you want to believe them or not. Larian seems like a good company, so I'm going to choose to believe them when they say that. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game with many release dates, and despite us moving its launch up by around a month, it's still a couple years late. It's late because we grew teams, ambition, and ideas in function of it being the best game it could possibly be. I think objectively that's true. Like, it's crazy what Larian did with this game and how much time and resources that they put into it. There's no denying that. Thankfully, not every idea makes it into the final launch. It wouldn't be the game you enjoy if they did. That's true. There's going to be so many ideas that need to be thrown out throughout the creative process. We're happy that Baldur's Gate 3 has resonated with a great many of you, but we'll never take that for granted. We're committed to tying up loose ends, fixing the remaining bugs, and improving things where we see they could and should be improved. So what can you expect from us in the future? First, we'll keep on monitoring what bugs you encounter, and we'll make sure to patch them as fast as we can. Second, we'll start making improvements based on the feedback you're giving us. Baldur's Gate 3 means so much to a great deal of you, and in turn, that means the world to us. We love this game, and we're not done with it yet. We welcome your feedback, your threads, and also your words of encouragement. I can tell you, like I said, I've been to their studio before. So many people there are just so happy to be working there, and they're so passionate about the game that they're working on. So I do believe Larian when they say that they want to make it the best that they possibly can. Wither's Wardrobe of Wayward Friends, which we hope to launch very soon, is an example of us integrating your feedback. This feature allows you to get rid of co-op party members who join your campaign, so you can continue on without them. I just talked about that today in my 1-star Baldur's Gate 3 overview, or going over 1-star reviews video. We're also working on the ability to change your character's look once you started a campaign, though we don't have a release date for that yet. There will be more, and you can expect us to come with modding support at some point too. Exciting. Once again, thank you for giving us so much feedback. It's incredibly motivating for us and drives us to do better and better. So there's Wither's Wardrobe of Wayward Friends. Offline friends sticking around and disrupting your party. Frustration be gone. Your favorite skeletal weirdo has cooked up a solution in the form of Wither's Wardrobe of Wayward Friends. It's no anomaly. I love how Larian keeps using the word anomaly. Some of you guys would find that funny if you guys have been keeping up with the drama in the industry. Simply place any unwanted party members in this peculiar piece of paranormia, and they'll be out of sight and mind until the jolly cooperation continues. Coming soon to a major patch near you. So right now, when a friend joins you as a custom character, that character ends up being stuck in your group, and you can't replace them with a companion. From what I understand, I haven't tried this myself. Larian is taking care of that right now. So happy that they are. I literally just called them out for this being a bad feature in my video earlier today. So really great to see. And I'm also excited for being able to change your character's look once you started a campaign. That'll be interesting as well to play around with certain things. So that is going to be it for today's video. Let's see if I click on the right. Yes, I did. I wasn't sure what scene was going to come when I clicked right there. That'll be it for today's video. Community update number 24. Larian addresses all sorts of things. The future of what they plan on doing. It seems like they're going to be on top of all sorts of really important topics. They have addressed the cut content issue. Personally, I don't really care if data mine content doesn't make it into the game. Overall, I think Act 3 is pretty good if you get rid of the severe bugs. I do wish there was a little bit more to the main quest, but I didn't mind the epilogue, but it's going to get better, so that's even better. Yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Let me know how you feel about all this below, and I'll catch you on the next one.